Some tariff on import rice, dairy product, and certain fruit and vegetable have been adjusted to protect domestic product. Japan remains concerned about food labeling sensitive agriculture market but has implied goods and gradual reduction in certain tariff rate as part of international agreement. Tariff on select industrial import include machine and high-tech components have been lowered to include innovation and support local industrial development on global supply chain. This move aligns with Japan participation in multilateral trade deals such as the Kumpulan and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership (CPTPP). The update reflects an emphasis on sustainability with adjustment to tariff on eco-friendly products and technology promoting import that align with Japan's environment goals. These tariff modifications are part of Japan's broader strategy to balance domestic economic interests with global trade commitments. Any person wish to import goods must declare them to the Director General of Customs and obtain an import permit after necessary examination of the good concerned. The formalities start with the logging of an import declaration and with issue of an import permit after the necessary examination and payment of customs duty and excise tax. In this way, measures are taken to ensure the fulfillment of the requirement for the control of foreign exchange and other regulations concerning the import of goods. The basic produce for submitting declaration document to customs is explained below. More than 90% of import produce is currently computed.
What is non-trade barriers? Non-trade barriers, or NTB, are restrictions that countries use to control imports and exports other than traditional tariff. Japan applies various non-trade barriers to importers, including customs requirements and documentation, labeling and marking requirements, and standards. A number of documents are required for customs clearance in Japan. An import declaration form must be submitted to Japan Customs with the following documents: invoice, bill of lading, insurance certificate, freight account, packing list, permit or approval required by laws and regulations other than the customs law, generalized system of preferences and certificates of origin, statement or reduction of or exemption from customs duty and excise tax, lastly, customs duty payment slips. The Japanese Measurement Act requires all imported products and shipping documents to show metric weights and measures. Japanese law requires labels for textiles, electrical appliances and apparatus, plastic products, and miscellaneous household and consumer goods. Generally, labeling for most imported products is not required at the customs but the point of sale. For most products, country of origin labeling is not required, although some beverages and food require labeling and marking of authenticity information. False or misleading labels displaying names of countries or flags other than the country of origin and/or names of manufacturers or designers outside the country of origin are not permissible. For most products, imported products are subject to product testing and cannot be sold in Japan without certification of compliance with prescribed standards. The standards fall into two categories: technical regulations or mandatory standards and non-mandatory or voluntary standards. Compliance with regulations and standards is also governed by a certification system in which inspection results determine whether or not approval is granted. Major laws stipulating standards that apply to products in Japan include the following: first, the Electrical Appliances and Materials Safety Act; second, the Consumer Product Safety Act; third, the Food Sanitation Act; fourth, the Act on Securing Quality, Efficacy, and Safety of Products; and fifth, the Building Standards Act. The Japan Industrial Standards Committee (JISC), administered by METI, plays a central role in setting standards in Japan. The Japan Agricultural Standards (JAS), meanwhile, mark is another voluntary but widely used product quality label. It applies to beverages, processed food, forest products, agricultural commodities, livestock products, oil and fats, products of the fishing industry, and processed goods made from agricultural, forestry, and fishing industry raw materials. What is export taxes? An export tax is a tax a government places on its own exporters. What is Japan's export taxes? First, consumption tax. Any business entity intending to sell products in Japan shall, in principle, pay consumption tax. However, the consumption tax is exempt if sales of goods are treated as an export transaction. This is based on the principle that the consumption tax is a national sales tax and should not be levied on goods consumed outside of Japan. This system is called export exemption. In order to receive the export exemption, the following documents are necessary to certify that goods are exported. First, general exportation consists of export permit, victualling bill, or export certificate of customs. Export by post. Export permit or export certificate of customs is required when the value of goods is more than 2,000 yen. When the value of goods is less than 2,000 yen, documents according to the following types of post item is needed. First, postal parcel or EMS, letters, postal items. Next, custom duties and tariff. Duties may also apply to exports, albeit less commonly. Both tariff and duties are calculated based on the customs value of the goods, which typically includes the cost of the product, insurance, and freight. Moreover, exporters must ensure that their products comply with Japanese standards, which may necessitate additional certifications. Failure to provide complete and accurate documents can lead to delays and additional costs. Besides export taxes, there is also export restrictions. Japan maintains a robust framework for regulating goods entering and exiting its borders, which include specific categories of prohibited and restricted items. Understanding these regulations is crucial for individuals and businesses engaged in international trade with Japan, as violations can lead to significant penalties. On the other hand, restricted goods may be imported or exported, but they require special permits and adherence to specific regulations. Examples of restricted goods include certain agricultural products, live animals, and items that could potentially harm the environment, such as toxic chemicals.
Malaysia uses various trade policies instruments to control its economy and achieve national development goals, such as trade policy, tariff structure, export tax, and non-tariff barrier. Malaysian trade policy involves some strategy to regulate and promote the international trade. This policy encompasses several components. The first one is tariff reduction policies. As a member of World Trade Organization and ASEAN, Malaysia has implemented tariff reduction to promote free trade and enhance economic integration with other countries. The country is also involved in free trade agreement that helps to reduce the trade barriers with other nations. The second one is import and export policies. Malaysia's focus is on export to stimulate the educative economic growth. The country offers various incentives and support to export industrials, such as tax exemption and financial assistance. The third one is industrial policies.
The Malaysian government sets policies to strengthen a specific sector, such as manufacturing, agriculture, and technology, to increase the competitive in international market. Other than that, tariffs are one of the trade policy instruments used by Malaysia to control the flow of goods in and out of the country. There are two types of tariff, which is import tariff and export tariff. Malaysia imposes import tariff on certain goods to protect domestic industry and control the inflow of foreign goods. These tariffs apply to products that may negatively affect the local industry and to encourage also the use of domestic products. The second one is export tariff. Malaysia also applies export tariff on certain commodities to ensure sufficient domestic supply or to enhance the value aspect of this product before export. For example, export tariffs are imposed on commodities like palm oil and certain metals. For tariff scale in Malaysia, the tariff structure in Malaysia employs different tariff rates depending on the type of good. There are zero rates for goods that are important for national development or those that are not available domestically.
So now let us go through to the export tax. Export tax are imposed by the Malaysian government to control the export of certain goods that are important for the country's economy or are significant revenue resources. So for the first part, which is controlling the export of natural resources, Malaysia imposes export tax on commodities such as palm oil, rubber, and metals to ensure value is added domestically before export. This also reduces the country's dependency on non-renewable natural resources. For the second part, which is increasing government revenue, export tax help the government generate revenue to fund national expenditures and stimulate the domestic economy. After we talk about the trade policy, tariff structure, and also export tax, here's the data for tariff and export tax in Malaysia, which you can refer to. Let us move to the fourth part, non-tariff barriers, which is coded as NTB. In addition to tariff, Malaysia uses various NTBs to regulate international trade. NTBs refer to restrictions that do not involve tariff but still can limit the trade. For the first type of NTB, which is import quotas, Malaysia sets quotas on certain goods to limit imports and protect domestic industries. For example, quotas are imposed on the import of rice and sugar to ensure food security and control domestic prices. For the second type, health and safety standards, Malaysia sets strict health, safety, and environmental standards for imported goods such as food products and pharmaceuticals. This is aimed at protecting local consumers and ensuring the quality of products entering the market. For the third one, customs, control, and documentation requirements. Malaysia has stringent custom procedures to ensure that traded goods comply with national laws and regulations. This includes requirements for certificates of origin and quality checks for specific goods. For the fourth type, anti-dumping regulations. Malaysia enforces anti-dumping measures to protect domestic industries from unfair competition that might arise from the importation of goods at price lower than domestic market price. So after we talk about the NTB, here's the data for the NTBs which you can refer to.
First, comparison about tariff structure. Japan adjusts tariffs strategically to align with global trade agreements and support domestic industries. Sensitive agriculture sectors like rice and dairy are safeguarded with quotas and face tariff reductions. Additionally, Japan promotes sustainability by reducing tariffs on eco-friendly products, while Malaysia uses import tariffs to protect local industries and promote the use of domestic products. A tire tariff structure is applied, with zero tariffs on essential goods to support development. Free trade agreements (FTAs), particularly through ASEAN and WTO, have significantly reduced tariffs to encourage international trade. So, as overall, Japan uses tariffs to balance global commitments with local economic interests, while Malaysia uses them to regulate the economy and promote industrial growth. Comparison about export taxes. So overall, Japan's policies prioritize tax exemptions for competitiveness. Malaysia uses export taxes for resource control and economic support. Export taxes within Japan and Malaysia. Japan exempts export transactions from consumption tax, ensuring goods not consumed locally remain untaxed. Export duties are rare but are used for specific restricted items such as toxic chemicals, while Malaysia imposes export taxes on commodities like palm oil and rubber to encourage domestic processing and value addition. These taxes also serve as a government revenue source and help regulate natural resource exports. For non-tariff barriers, Japan enforces strict export documentation and standard compliance, requiring permits and certifications to meet local regulations. These measures primarily control restricted items like agricultural goods and hazardous materials, while Malaysia employs quotas on specific goods like rice to protect our local industries and ensure food security. Health, safety, and environmental standards are strictly enforced for imports, especially for food and pharmaceuticals. Anti-dumping measures are also implemented to safeguard domestic industry. So overall, Japan ensures compliance with high standards while Malaysia uses non-tariff barriers to balance domestic market needs. To summarize, Japan emphasizes global competitiveness, sustainability, and innovation in its trade policies. Malaysia prioritizes domestic industry protection, resource management, and economic stability. Both countries use a mix of tariffs, export taxes, and non tariff barriers, but with distinct objectives tailored to their economies. Japan focuses on eco friendly trade, and high compliance standards can inspire modern trade practices. Malaysia approach to leveraging natural resources and supporting local industries showcases practical solutions for developing economics. Both countries demonstrate that effective trade policies require balancing domestic needs with international commitments to achieve sustainable growth.